I am your host, Carrie, giving us different perspectives on where we are and where we want to go on our journey. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to spending some time with you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another session of the FoundHer Series. I am doing a whole, I don't know how many, 13, there's 13 authors in the book. Well, that's including me, so I'm not interviewing myself. 12 authors. And I'm doing a series to introduce each of the authors and gain some more insight to the chapter in Volume 2, Beautiful Chaos, Embracing the Unexpected. So today, I have for you Gwen Haas. She wrote a beautiful chapter that really, to me, expands all of us to think outside of the box, think differently, have a different perspective, which I love bringing to this podcast. Gwen, welcome to the show. And I would love for you to hop in here, tell us the name of your chapter again, and we're going to dive in to what you covered in that chapter and what this experience has been like for you. So welcome.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. My chapter is called The Little Alchemist MagicK. And it just, I don't know, my hopes and my intentions is really to touch and reach everyone and to really touch that alchemist inside of everyone.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like it has been a challenge for me. And what I feel like being in a world that doesn't necessarily have the resources that nourish and nurture me naturally. It's a little challenging to be in this world. And writing this chapter was great because my hopes were for anybody that feels different. And I think we all do because we're all unique, right? So that touches everyone.
Yes.
Anyone that's feeling different, I'm hoping that this will nourish them and nurture them and really just spark that that divine, that little alchemist inside of them.
Beautiful.
And just allow them to feel seen. So
and you talk about that because the world that you came into, you came in with gifts that really did make you different. So during that time, how would that have been for you to feel like you belonged in a world that probably didn't make a lot of sense? Or it made so much sense, but nobody else got it. Like, I mean, I guess it's both sides, wasn't it?
Yeah, I always call it a double-edged sword. You know, as a child, when you're growing up, and you don't, and I mean, and my parents, they have their own beautiful gifts and abilities. But when you don't have that support and you don't know how to ask for it, right? Like, I mean, there's so many experiences I had as a child where I thought everybody saw what I saw, right? Like I didn't know any different, right? And then I feel like the trauma starts in that awareness of when you recognize that that is not the case, if that makes sense.
Yes, that totally makes sense, that not everybody sees what you see. And now you do realize that you're different.
Yeah. And then just living in that world of being different.
Right.
And then I feel like fast forward and coming into, you know, being an adult and having my Kundalini awakening that really stirred things up for me. Then it more became how to be comfortable in my body in this world.
Yes. And you write a lot about that in the chapter with really an honoring of that little alchemist magic inside of you, which you acknowledge that we all have that. But sometimes we stuff her down or stuff him down, and we don't allow that magical part of us to come out. And you really touch on that a lot. It was almost like that little child within you, that little alchemist was just screaming to come out. It was like knocking, like, let me out. I want someone to hear my voice. And especially you to recognize and accept and honor that piece of you. And I thought you did a beautiful job of describing her and just allowing that safety for her to be able to come out. And that's in your body, right? You had to really calm your nervous system, where you talk in the chapter about being a highly sensitive person in living in a world where people don't understand that, or the majority of people don't understand that. And so you were constantly fighting against yourself with your nervous system. And then when you talked about the Kundalini experience, you touched on going to the naturopath, and that really opened up. And can you talk a little bit about that? Like, it was almost like your little alchemist felt seen in that moment by that person. Can you help me with that a little bit?
Yeah. So for me, everything, like I'm largely sensory based. So everything is what I visually see. And so if I can't visually see it in the world, I'm like getting images and visions within myself. Like I'm just always seeing. So if I'm not looking directly at you, it's because I'm like seeing and getting visions, and I'm like looking at, like, everything is energy and everything is, I see.
Right.
And so for when I was with my naturopath, it was beautiful because I developed this garden within myself, and I talk about that. Like, I take everything to the garden, and I describe it from the beginning of, like, when the garden started, and how it was just by, I don't know, it wasn't, nothing's by accident, but how I started growing my garden. And then the garden started growing me. And so, and that was so I go through that in the story. So that, like, that's all beautiful because it's that innate intelligence within all of us, right? It's something that is bigger than us. Like, I can't get there with my mind, right? And I think that in this world, so many people are trying to get beyond the mind and get inside, but there's so much to digest and so much to process. And so that I talk about that in the book, about like how, I a lot of weeds, like a lot of digesting and a lot of processing, and it didn't come easily. And so then by the time I got to my naturopath, and I'd been to other naturopaths before because I am highly sensitive, so I can't just go to a doctor. They want to just, give you medications, but we have to remember I'm highly sensitive. So what works for you, I'll need a fraction of that. So and doctors don't understand that. And so with this naturopath, though, it was like I went in and I was completely fine. I described that in the chapter. I was completely fine. I sat down, everything was good. And like, next thing I know it, I'm like snot crying, and I'm having like this experience. And who hasn't had trauma in their life? But I did have some really big traumatic experiences in my life. And one of them was what came up. What was decided to, like, dump on her table. And there was something different this time that happened. It was like the visions were coming and everything was coming out. And then after, my nervous system had literally just like it was like this safe space. It was like, and now looking back on it, I too believe that she's also an alchemist, because like attracts like. And there was something, I talk about her hair and how the curls were magic, and they just like, it was like an entire little avatar world, but she got me. And that part of me as being a seer is, the difference is I can be with a person and I can feel what you're not saying. And so, and I can feel when you're uncomfortable with me. as well, right?
Yeah.
And I still have to be with that. But with her, this was different. There was no uncomfortable. I didn't feel her repelling me.
Right.
I didn't feel what I just snot crying.
Yeah.
Everything just came out and it came
Yes.
out of nowhere. It sideswiped me. I didn't even know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then the shame, like there was shame that course as a seer, my gifts and abilities, everything, like I said, is physical, but like it's all sensations. So it's all things that people are generally packing down.
Right.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
And it has to run its course and I can't stop it.
Yeah.
And I have to, I have different tools that in order to manage it. But the shame was also coming through from this trauma. It was like moving through and it was coursing through my veins. And I was acutely aware, like snot everywhere. This is where you would just want to like bear down and, crawl into a hole.
Yeah.
And visions coming and my hands dangling in front of me. And I'm just like, most people would be like, oh my God, shut this down. But it's all happening. And then I'm not even looking at her. I'm like looking away from her. And the shame is coursing through me. And I'm hearing shame and I'm getting visions. And then my mouth opens up. So, most people don't, you don't say your inside thoughts, but no, my mouth opens up and it's like, I'm acutely aware that I can't even make eye contact with you because there's so much shame coursing through my body. So just so you know, I'm not looking at you because I recognize that I'm full of shame. Right. And so and nothing, she didn't flinch.
No.
So in that moment, like my little alchemist, this little girl inside of me, this was the first time. This was a being in the outside world, in the physical realm, not my inner garden, because that there's you don't get turned away in my inner garden. Like
there's safety in there.
It's divine. It's safe, right?
Yes.
And so that was like the first experience for me of being in the physical world and being face to face with someone that didn't also look away, like I wasn't a leper.
Yeah. What a beautiful, and she knows this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. She actually knows that I told her, at my last session with her, I said, I'm writing this chapter and I'm like, and you're in it. I'm like, don't worry, I didn't use your name. I just call you my naturopath. And she was just it was beautiful. Like there was a beautiful connection because while there's deep healing in my journey for myself and for each of us, we also have to recognize that there's equally deep healing in your journey, my journey, for the people that I'm coming into contact with, right? Like, so for her as well, like there was a deep connection and there was a deep, like a deep honoring. So, so.
And how special that she was the one. Well, I mean, you went to her, like you said, there's no accidents, that the synchronicities that happen when you're, and I think that's one of your gifts as well, is being able to see people for who they are. You honor that space. You hold the space for people to just be who they are. And it sounds like she held that space for you. And for you to be held with no shame and no judgment, just to be in that space, I mean, that's beautiful in itself. And I'm so happy that you wrote about that, because I think there's a lot of people who are just looking to be seen. They're looking to be heard. They don't know where to go. And that's why I think it's so courageous of you to be doing what you're doing, to allow us to see into a different world, really, and knowing that you're saying it's okay, like it's safe. You just need to make sure you're surrounded by the right people that will honor that space for you to be fully seen as yourself. And we all carry shame, and like you said, I don't think there's many people in this world that have not had some sort of trauma in their life. And I think if there was a message in the book or in your chapter, I think that's what planted the seed for me, is really honoring that inner child and listening, because there's a lot of answers there if we're willing to listen. And I think we also need to be willing to see those parts of us.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what you did it was like you kind of held her hand. I mean, she was screaming at you, but
It was kicking and screaming, that child that is like kicking and pushing you away, but really wants you to pull them closer.
Yes,
That, right?
exactly.
It's like
Yes.
that's the moment of being seen, right?
Oh,
That in that moment of pushing away and wanting to be held at the
yeah.
same time, right?
Yes.
That whole little prayer of please don't let me push you away. Please don't let me push you away. Like
Yeah.
that is the moment of being seen in that space.
I
And
love that visual. I love that visual, like a child in a temper tantrum that all they want is you, but all they're doing is pushing you away, but they really want you. Like they want you to
Yeah.
take them in, but they're doing everything to push you away. And then when you can come to that moment of like that feels sacred to me. Like that
That's a deep
felt,
surrender, right? Like that's a deep surrender in life.
yeah,
I mean,
beautiful.
that's the human experience, right? Is that moving through life and all of this stuff is coming at us. All of this beautiful chaos is coming at us, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's all coming at us. And it's in that deep surrender of like, so we're not trying to, I want this so bad, and I'm trying to make this happen. And there's like there's an innate intelligence that is like, this is for you. Like, this is for you. Breathe that in, like, just allow that, like, trust that there's something bigger, there's something more, there's some more magic. And like I say in the book, right? It's like, it's from like the green lights, especially when you're in a rush. It's like the green lights. Thank you, thank you. And it's like when you get a red light, most of the time we'll like, damn it, we're late, right? And we want to stop. But it's like, that's divine timing in that. You know what? Take that moment and say thank you, right? Because you needed to stop in that moment. And whether it was for something that was oncoming up ahead, or whether it was just for the moment inside of yourself, right? You needed a moment. Take that. And just so say thank you, right? So no more curse in the red lights, no more curse in the yellow lights. Like take them as that magic. Take them as that magical sign of take a moment. Just need that, right?
And trusting.
Like trusting, it's just that, it's that surrendering, and it's not always easy. Right.
For sure.
But if you can keep that analogy, right, of that child, and trust me, you know what, also, and this, I mean, I won't go into this, but this was a beautiful gift that my father passed before, a gift that he gave me before he passed. And it's like, sometimes in this lifetime we can't give that to our children that we want to give that, right? We want to so badly, but if we don't have that in ourselves, then we aren't able to give that. We can try our hardest, and we will, and you should proceed, you should go on. What I will say is my father had passed, and he was curious about my abilities, but scared as hell of my abilities as well. And when he was crossing, in the time he had come to me, I wasn't, when he was in the hospital passing, I wasn't there. And he had come to me before he passed. And he had come to me and he's like, Gwenny, I lead, you follow. Yeah, Dad. Yeah. And I'm running around the house. Gwenny, I lead. 3 times he said, Gwenny, I lead, you follow. And in the 3rd time, I stopped in my tracks and I just said, okay. And I knew he had crossed, and my phone had rang less than 30 seconds later. And it was the hospital to say, I'm sorry, Gwen, your dad's passed. Like, it's a 3-hour drive. Like, don't rush. Like, just get here when you get here. And the whole 3 hours, my dad was conversing with me. The whole time he was giving, and he had not talked about my gifts and abilities, but I communicated with him more in that 3 hours, and he had given me messages more in that 3 hours than he did in my entire lifetime.
Unreal.
To the point of, I was out in the middle of nowhere driving, and there was construction in the middle of nowhere. And I had to stop and wait at the red light that construction's happening. And all of a sudden this truck comes through and circles and goes back. It stops, it waits for me to get behind it. Great big sign on the back of the truck that says, "Follow me." And
I
I'm
love it.
like,
I love these kind of stories. I
right.
love it.
And I guess the magical part, and I don't want to go too sideways, sorry, but the magical part was when I got to the hospital, I went into his room and there was his cold body because he had passed, but I'd had 3 hours of conversation with him.
Yeah.
I cried and he was a bigger man, and I put my arms around him, his shoulders, and my heart on his, and I just laid on him and I bawled. And I bawled and I bawled and I bawled. And the most beautiful part was that although his body was a corpse and it was cold, there was this warmth that happened, this connection that happened, and I felt completely safe as I wrapped my arms around him. And I bawled even more because that was one thing that I wanted, was to be my dad's little girl and always feel safe. And as much as my dad worked his ass off to keep me as safe as he could, there was always something. And here it was because he didn't fully feel safe inside of him.
Absolutely.
But before he left, he was able to gift that to me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And
that's so beautiful.
I guess that's kind of, so when I'm talking about surrendering, and with a child, there's that, right? That child, any child can sense when you feel that safe or that surrender or that love within. They actually can feel that connection.
Yeah, I believe that.
That's the surrender. That's the surrender.
I totally, that makes sense to me. Why it makes sense to me, I don't know, but it does. I love stories like that because I think that's what we need to hear. We need to start paying attention to those synchronicities, to those things that are happening all the time, all around us. We're just not paying attention. And I think that's what you bring back into your chapter is that allowance, that surrender, that trusting, that inner guide that we all have. And the way you described her, the Little Alchemist MagicK is just the vision I have is to me just like a golden light in every one of us, and let that come out. And that's the light within all of us. And I just think it's such a beautiful way to honestly sum up your chapter. From my perspective, from me reading it. And I think every reader is going to get something different out of it. And which I love that too, because I think you've left a lot up for interpretation, right? Like you want people to take what they want from it or what they see or what they feel from the words that you wrote. So even for me to ask you what's the message you want the reader to take, it's almost like take whatever they feel. You don't even have a message. It's you take what you want, but you showed up. Like you showed up and gave us this gift. And that is how I feel about your chapter. I feel it's a gift. I feel it's a gift to the world. I think we need more people like you who are shining their light, even in the difficult, maybe that nonsense of belonging in a world that's so different, and that you see it so differently from so many of us. But I think we are starting to wake up. I hope we are, as humanity, as the collective, that we are starting to be aware there's higher powers out there, that our energy, our vibration, we are using such a small amount of our capabilities. And when we start to open our mind and open our world opens. But it's people like you who are sharing stories like this, sharing your gifts for us to just maybe open a little bit, just have a little bit more curiosity of what's going on inside of us and outside. So if you have some closing words that you'd like to share about your chapter, I can't wait. I mean, this will come out after the books come out. I just hope that people reach out to you. I think your chapter is going to open a lot of conversations. And that's what we want. Our intention is to help whoever picks this book up. It was meant for them. And the conversations that can come, I just think is going to be mind blowing. And I love that you said yes. So thank you. And Gwen, I'll leave a last word for you if you'd like to say anything to the readers or whoever picks the book up, what you're thinking.
Yeah, I do believe that my chapter, while it may seem, like what is she talking about? I do know without a doubt that those that are ready, and I think for everyone, I because there's a mastery with my gifts and abilities to speak your language, my language, right? Like to speak that out loud for you so that you actually understand your own language and am able to interpret that. I feel like the chapter will speak to you exactly what you need. And I feel like the beautiful part is like if you go back to it again, it will speak something different to you because you are evolving.
Yes.
Right.
I love that.
And yeah, my prayer is just that anyone who reads the chapter, that it inspires them and it allows them to touch and experience their own magic within them. Yeah, and that's it. And may they feel seen, and may they feel heard, and may they feel like they are one, because we're all one, right? We're just in a world all coming together.
I'm ending it right there. That's too good. I love it. I love it. That's what I want everybody to get. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching. I hope you have picked up your copy of Beautiful Chaos, Embracing the Unexpected. And I cannot wait to see you and hear from you. And if you are in the Qualicum Beach area, come to the summit on May 24th. Gwen will be on the panel. There's going to be lots of authors from both Volume 1 and Volume 2. And I look forward to seeing you and meeting you and having these amazing conversations. So thank you, Gwen, for being here. And thank you, everybody. We will see you on the next session. Bye, Gwen.
Take care.
Thank you.